Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Ashley. I'm the head of financial narrative. I'm glad to see so many of you joining us today. Today, we're going to talk about Wikipedia, which I know is a topic that a lot of you deal with in your day-to-day, whether that is an executive asking why they don't have a Wikipedia page, whether that is a piece of incorrect information on your Wikipedia page, etc. And it's a bit of a complicated beast. So we're going to have a really great discussion with my friend Stephen here, who I'm going to introduce in just a second. He's really spends a good majority of his time dealing with Wikipedia. So I'm excited to have an expert here to talk us all through it. So just quickly, as we get started, this event is being recorded. So I know a lot of our events fall under Chatham House rules. This one does not. This one will be fully public. You will be able to see the recording afterwards. And I'd like to thank our partners, ClearMarque. ClearMarque is a top provider of digital reputation management, a friend of financial narrative. They've really helped companies and individuals, including some of our members, to build, align, and protect how they appear in both search results and Wikipedia. So overall online reputation management. And then today, like thinking about today's session, your CEO's reputation or your company's reputation can be significantly impacted by what appears in search results. And as we all know, one of the things that appears mostly in search results is Wikipedia. So that can impact, the impressions that journalists, investors, stakeholders have about your organization. So today, Stephen, who is the CEO and founder of ClearMarque and focuses on digital reputation management. Hi, Stephen, welcome. We're going to talk really about how financial brands can manage Wikipedia. We're going to talk a little bit about the rules of the road and the basics of Wikipedia, as well as, if you start having issues, if you start having problems, what are the things that you can do to help manage that? So, Stephen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to be here.
So I gave a little overview, but to have a whole webinar on one website, just about one website, seems like kind of a big commitment. Why are we talking about Wikipedia? Why would you give it that much importance and that much weight?
Sure. So as we said, we're specifically focused on reputation management for all types of companies, and we've dealt a lot with that in the financial space. And what we're seeing is most obviously Wikipedia appearing very prominently in search results for our clients' names, whether it's executives or it's the company. Wikipedia really is a place that people turn to for validated information. Whenever it is that they want to understand more about a company or about an individual, that is typically one of the first places they'll end up going. They'll start off in search. Usually, they don't necessarily start off with Wikipedia, but if there's a page that does represent that person or company, then it's going to be appearing quite prominently, whether it's in the first top 3 or 4 results of a Wikipedia search, or if you're looking on desktop on the right side of the screen in the knowledge panel, there's a little blurb there being pulled from Wikipedia and a link going into the Wikipedia page. So people are looking at Wikipedia quite often, and it does have a huge impact on the search results, and also obviously on the general way that people think about a company or an individual. I mean, also just to add on to that is that today, I believe the stat is, I think there's 7.5 billion page views on Wikipedia every single month. And that if you drill it down, that's like 250 million page views per day. That means that lots of people are looking at Wikipedia for information, and they're using that as a trusted source. So you want to make sure that that's a place where you as a company or an executive are being represented the way that you'd like to be seen.
And why, I'm curious, why does Google prioritize, or why do search engines, I should say, prioritize Wikipedia in such a meaningful way? I mean, putting the snippets and things like that, that's big to pull all from one website.
Yeah. So the reason why is because it's a wiki, right? That means that it's basically crowdsourced on a constant basis. There are people adding or taking away information. It has its own rule set, which we can get into soon. It's a little bit of it used to be a Wild West. Now it's just another realm that you have to learn how to deal with the rules over there. But the point is that search engines trust trust the process that pages go through. Whether that's okay or not okay, it remains, we can discuss that as well, but that's what they've decided, because search engines basically have to rely on some validated information. As we see today with AI, there are already questions about them ripping off information perhaps from here, or it's any sort of infringement or anything along those lines. So here Wikipedia is open source. Anyone is allowed to pull information from there, and because of the rule set, the information there has been deemed mostly, I guess we would say, mostly true.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so give us the overview of how it works. I think some of our audience will be familiar, some won't. So give us the high level of how does Wikipedia work, and how do Wikipedia page get created, edited, etc.
Sure. So whether it's a company or an individual or even a topic, an event, and basically anything that has garnered some sort of worthiness, so to speak, according to Wikipedia standards, whenever something like that happens, or perhaps if it did happen and no one chose to put it up at that time, and perhaps later someone did add it to Wikipedia, anyone who has a username will go on and create a page for that. Let's take a company, for example, for a company or an individual, and they'll create that page. And then that page, they can start that page perhaps as a whole page, or they can start that page, with a couple of sentences. And then what will happen is over time, it will evolve as other editors will come along and add more information. Perhaps a company was started 20 years ago and it became a little bit more prominent 10 years ago. And then it was able to get a page. Someone decided to put up a page with all the right resources and so on. And then let's say something happened 2 years later, right? So then that event would happen. I'm sorry, that event would be added to the page, and then so on and so forth. It's an evolution, and it's a constantly changing.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And I think we've all seen that with Wikipedia pages, and maybe even people are able to add information that you wouldn't want them to add. But let's take a look real quickly. I think it would be helpful as we dive into this discussion just to look at both search results and a Wikipedia page. I know Rachel's got those pulled up for us. So she Googled BlackRock. So Stephen, tell us a little bit about what we're looking about and what all is being sourced from Wikipedia here.
Sure. So if we scroll up towards the top of the page, Rachel, a little bit, you can see obviously there's the BlackRock Wikipedia page, but if you scroll up a little bit more, even you'll notice on the right side of the screen, on the top right, there's that knowledge panel, and you can see it says BlackRock with the logo. Right beneath it, that those one or two sentences that are explaining detailing who BlackRock is, that's coming from Wikipedia. You can see there's a link there as well, right? So that's being directly pulled from the Wikipedia page. That is the representative of BlackRock in search results, right? So people want to come here and they want to see who BlackRock is. That's what they're going to see. Some of the information also below there, the CEO, Larry Fink, and the founders and the stock price, some of that, not all of it, but some of it is also being pulled from Wikipedia, right? CFO, COO. That information is often updated. And you can notice that the revenue there is the last time the revenue that's listed is from 2023, right? As an example, right? It could be that first quarter 24, right? Should have been, or whenever, right? Whatever it should be there. But the point is that it's possible that information that's not updated is also appearing in this knowledge panel if it's not being taken care of. So a lot of this, not all of it, but a lot of it is being pulled from Wikipedia, and it's definitely being used as a trusted source to represent a company or an individual in search results. The search engine will immediately look to see if there's a Wikipedia page, and if there is one that's in the index, in the search index. So it's going to appear somewhere on this page, and if it's one for one directly relevant, so then it's an exact match. So then it's obviously going to appear in the case of a knowledge panel and some of that information that you see below.
Yeah. No, so that's big, but what about if we don't have a Wikipedia page? Or do you want to look at the Wikipedia page itself? Do you want to talk about the anatomy of the Wikipedia page and kind of how it's formed, or do you want to talk about the lack of Wikipedia page first? Which one do you want to do first, Stephen?
Let's while we're on this page, let's talk about lack of first. I think that makes more sense.
All right. So if we don't have a Wikipedia page, what goes here?
So if we don't have a page, so There are some times that this knowledge panel will be, will be created, so to speak, where it will be there, but it will have information pulling from somewhere else, and it's a much lower percentage. That's first of all. Second of all, just from the outset, when someone takes a look at this screen, imagine if there was nothing there on the right side of the page, and you look up BlackRock, and you're like, okay, so I see a website. Maybe if they have stories, which they do, they always do, right? They'll always have stories, so they have a top story section there. But if you'll scroll down, it'll just be a regular set of search results, and it's like I kind of have to put the pieces together myself, right? As someone who's searching to find out more about this topic, in the case this company, right? So there's a lot less prominence, right? If you
Mhm.
compare to this set of results, right, and then you see something on the right side of the screen with a nice big logo and some information there, even just the fact that it says below BlackRock Investment Company, right, and then you have that, obviously the blurb being pulled from Wikipedia and all this information here, it makes it much more robust, and it makes the company look a lot more prominent, legitimate, important. Uh, Choose your word. The point is that this is a way of looking the way you should be looking if you're doing business.
Okay, that makes sense, and I mean,
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
we can all agree to that. Now, you mentioned that, for example, the earnings here are a little bit behind. The last ones are from 2023. So, let's talk about leaving your Wikipedia page alone, right? I think a lot of people think, this is not a good place for us to play. Let's allow the Wikiverse, if you will, to deal with that page. Clearly, in terms of the earnings, at least, that may be the approach that BlackRock is taking. But let's talk about, why does it matter that that's outdated?
Sure. So I think that's a very good point. I like the way that you're asking that question, because even though it's true that things will take care of themselves on Wikipedia, it's a matter of when they'll take care of themselves, right? It's a matter of, will it happen, will it happen in real time, or will it happen 6 months down the line? Will it happen a year later? It'll happen whenever someone thinks it's important. That's when it'll happen, right? So um, even though there are some perhaps some regulatory issues in editing your own page, in this case, let's say perhaps someone like BlackRock, right? It's an issue. It will be an issue for some to edit their own page. I do believe it's quite important to ensure that the information is getting updated in real time. If you want to get something done, then get it done yourself, because you can't necessarily rely on them to constantly update the information, and you don't know if they're putting the right information up there as well. Even if they are updating, they may be using the wrong sources. They may be using, who knows what they're saying, who knows what they're writing. So you want to ensure that the information that's going to appear there is going to be information that's correct, and no one knows better than the someone who's working inside the company.
Yeah, and when you say they, so you're saying they're updating. I mean, I know that could be anybody. I could go on and update BlackRock's page if I tried, I think. But who's typically doing a lot of these updates? Can you give us just a little bit of who this amorphous they might be?
Sure, sure. So Wikipedia editors are made up of pretty much everyone and anyone. It's anyone who has some spare time, down to a retired professor who has all the time in the world and really enjoys researching and updating information, and feels great to give something back. And really, there are so many different types. There's so many different profiles of Wikipedia editors out there. But one thing that is important to note is that many editors take the rules quite seriously, and so these editors, they're the ones who are adding information, and they may feel that, or any editor, rather you can say the general consensus is that they feel that, why should I be updating BlackRock's information in real time? That's not my problem, right? They have their own IR team. They're basically updating everyone that needs to be updated whenever they want to update them, and they're dealing with quarterly earnings, and they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with. And the point is that they're on top of it. And why should I have? This is not important, right? It's not my problem to ensure that everyone knows what their quarterly revenue is, right? I don't get paid for that. I don't really care about that. In fact, I'm sure there's a nice undertone of we could care less for financial, right? There's a lot of that. So the point is that you want to make sure that your interests are aligned here, and that you're representing yourself. You're taking control of the narrative as much as you can within the Wikiverse.
All right. Well, let's take a look, just for the sake of example. If you could give us a quick cruise through the BlackRock Wikipedia page and tell us what we're looking at and kind of some of the things that we could probably close the Wikipedia can't be sold for
Yeah,
now. We're getting the
they're very aggressive.
sponsorship ad, so,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
donation ad, I should say. Tell us a little bit about this and how we break this down.
Sure. So you can see on the left side of the screen, you have the menu there, with history, and you can really go from section to subsection. But at the top of the page, this is really the blurb that's being pulled to search results for starters, right? BlackRock is an American multinational investment company founded in 1998, initially as an enterprise risk and management, so on and so forth. This is really this line. These one or two sentences are being used to to represent BlackRock in search results in the knowledge panel on the right side of the screen. Before we move on from this one spot, I just want to give you a short story. Is that we a couple of months back, during the elections or before the elections, there was a candidate running. I believe he was in New York, and there were some issues that he was having, and he was taking a stance on one issue in particular. And someone from the opposite side decided to go and edit his Wikipedia page. This very first line, okay, the very first line. It was a derogatory, and quite a nasty edit. And the stars lined up that the edit just happened to be done at the right time. Where what happened is that this one line stayed in search results for this person's name in his knowledge panel for a good day. Okay, it just happened to be the time that Google indexed it, and it literally showed up and it was smack in the middle of it was in the heat of it, and his that negative. And I looked at his page views. He had something like maybe 1,500 or 2,000 page views that day, and people were looking at his page. That means people were looking at his name in search, and this is a very impactful place, both on the page and in search results. So I just want to reiterate that this is a very, very important, and it's something that should not be taken lightly. One should definitely keep an eye on this one spot. But we'll move on, and you can see there, like I said, on the left side of the screen, we have many different sections and subsections that can be viewed across, rather down the page. Sometimes, if there is some sort of controversy, there will be a controversy section. I don't think that they have one here. I don't see it now, but sometimes they do have a controversy section. It is something that we've dealt with quite often, where we'll have a company or an individual, an executive who goes through some sort of controversy, and it will stick out quite nice and clearly on their page. And that's something that you need to look out for. If it's there, it's very difficult to move. It's very difficult to change, but it is something that will appear. Everything else is more or less standard. What will happen is they'll go through the history of the company, how it's evolved, talk about the key people. Perhaps if there are certain products that, in this case, BlackRock is working with, and that have been successful, or that have maybe less about success, but more about have garnered a lot of attention. So it could be that it'll be something which is worth putting in here. But it's very important to note that in general, Wikipedia is not a place to market. So the terms of service are that you cannot use any marketing language here on the site. If you use that, you're risking either getting a big banner at the top of the page saying that there's something wrong, add paid edits or something like that, or it'll just get knocked down and it'll be reverted quite quickly. So you need to be careful about the wording. You also need to be careful about what you're putting up there, about the content in general. Like I said, if there's a product, for example, that BlackRock is trying to push right now, they can't just slap it on the top on this page and see what happens, because they know that they're getting let's say 50 or 70,000 hits a month, right? They can't just put it up there. What they need to do is, it needs to be something that is sourced online, something that's important, something that the public needs to know about, and then perhaps maybe you got some sort of coverage, and then it would make sense for it to be on this. This is more about being an encyclopedia than being a place to market yourself.
Okay. And how important is it that all of these backlinks are in here? I'm just looking at this page and seeing that we're backlinking to iShares and Vanguard and State Street, and some of whom are probably on this call right now. There's a lot of companies that are backlinked here. How important is that internal linking? I mean, I know that to a certain extent, Wikipedia does that for us, right? Like, I don't know that you have to do that, but how important is it that all of those links are in there?
Sure. So actually, the editors are the ones who add those links. Anything that's going to be added is they're going to add links. It's actually we're going to dip down into the weeds for just a second. It's important. It's important to have those links on your page. So, for example, a link to Vanguard or a link to State Street, a link to Aladdin. These things are important because what it does is it shows that this page is relevant to those other important and prominent topics or pages, right? So that's something that also gives the page its relevance and shows that it's important. Obviously, BlackRock, they don't really need that, but to speak about this in general is that these links are important. As far as just general interlinking is concerned, it's also nice because it helps readers go and check out other parts, other topics that are related to this page. And so perhaps they can see, okay, so I see that BlackRock is a peer of Vanguard, and they're involved in State Street and so on. They offer Aladdin and so on and so forth. But further than that, these links are also helpful, even though from a general search perspective, and SEOs will say it's not true, because these are officially no-follow links. These links are important because they do something in the end of the day, and they do show relevancy, and they do show a connection, right? Google, we have to think about in general search results in Google as being, think more in human terms than in computer terms, and think about just what it's doing. If I mention that we're doing a Wikipedia workshop today with you, Ashley, so then people will associate me and Ashley, all just because I said Ashley, right? And that's it. I say Ashley Jones, everyone knows Ashley Jones, Stephen Mauskopf, they're doing a Wikipedia workshop together, right? You have to think in those terms. So here, this is in some way, shape, or form, this is tying the page to any other links on this page. And so it does show relevancy, it does show importance, it shows that there's a connection between this page and many other links here on the page. So that it is nice and it is important, and it does things for search, and it does things just for showing, giving more prominence to the page as well. Okay.
All right. Well, I think we've gotten a good look at, and sorry if we have any BlackRock attendees here. We're not targeting any one person. We're thinking of a large institution that we wanted to use as an example. So we can take down that page. But Stephen, you mentioned something about regulatory considerations. So before we get into how can I edit my page and change it, and what are the ways that I can influence this page, which is frankly the business that everyone on this call is in, is the influence business. But talk to us for financial institutions about regulation. I think this is really important, and actually some of the things that you shared on our prep call I wasn't even aware of. So tell us about regulation.
Sure. So let's take before we get into the regulations, let's move one step away, and then we'll zoom in. First of all, in general, for Wikipedia's terms of service, so that a company or an individual cannot actually edit their own page. They're not allowed to edit their own page. If they're caught editing their own page, there will be an issue. Again, there could be some sort of banner there. They'll obviously revert the edits. There are issues that will arise. There have been many cases where someone in some company had tried to do, in a prominent firm tries to edit their page, and if it makes the news, you're in trouble. That's the worst case scenario, or perhaps, like I said, there'll be some sort of banners, making the page look not so great, and at the very least it'll get shot down. That's just from Wikipedia's side, but obviously from a regulatory perspective, we have other issues where, we know, like we said, this, even though this isn't a place to market, in the end of the day, any firm who's going to write about themselves here is going to, it's possible that this would be considered marketing, right? This could be considered some form of marketing in a way that's not according to regulations. We have, because this is not an owned site. This is not owned by the company or an individual. This is a third-party site. Again, it's a wiki, so anyone can add, and so you can add too. But the bottom line is that if you add something here, it could be considered to be quite problematic. And the thing is that even if you don't have an editor, right? I mentioned before, an editor is someone who will start a page, but you can actually edit pages anonymously. The danger, though, that you need to understand is that your IP address is going to appear instead of your actual name, your username. And so your IP address can be followed back to where you're sitting, right? If you're logging in through a company VPN, let's say, for example, or if you're in the office, and you're logging in the office, or you're making an edit through the office, so that they can actually follow that IP and see that this was at BlackRock's office, that someone went into the BlackRock page and made a change, and that's quite problematic. And so, there are a number of issues here. You have to be quite careful at when you're playing with this, even though it's very, very important. It's so prominent, and it helps so much. There's a specific way in which you need to deal with editing these pages.
Well, okay, so I'm sitting at my company. My earnings are reported incorrectly. I see that. How do I change it if I'm not allowed to go in and change it? I know the right answer. I'm not putting any marketing spiel in there. Can I just go change it, or is that still against the rules?
It would be a problem. It would be a
Okay.
problem. Yeah. The best way to get it done is to know editors who can help you out. There are a number of ways of reaching out to editors and dealing with them, but you have to be very careful because this is also a little bit of a power game, right? You're a big bad BlackRock. Oh, and you're coming to me. You want me to edit your page? Like, I don't know. Now I'm the one with the power, right? Now I feel all powerful, right? That's how Wikipedia editors are feeling. And so they're saying, again, not my problem. I don't really care. You guys are making money anyway. It doesn't make a difference to me if your numbers are updated, right? And so you have to deal with that. You have to deal with posturing. You have to deal with, you have to know who to talk to and who to work with. Editors who are going to be helpful and understanding. And then there are the editors who are going to be a little bit more problematic. And they might even flag you even if you reach out to an editor directly. They may even flag you and say, hey, someone at BlackRock is reaching out to editors trying to get their page changed. There's a way to get that done. There's even a way to reach out to editors, right? And to know who to talk to, and to know how to say what you need to say, and to how to represent yourself, and so on. So there are ways of getting this done. I don't want to get too detailed just because it might get a little it's monotonous and it's too much. But there are ways of getting this done.
Okay. Well, so to the question that's in the chat, is it advisable to reach out to an editor directly? I mean, if it's something as simple as the number here is wrong, is it advisable, or would you say you usually need to go through other channels in order to avoid playing that power game?
I would say you could do it, but you need your hand held. You can't just do it. Meaning you can't just jump on Wikipedia and say, hey, I see that this guy's been, I see that this editor has been working a lot on BlackRock or in the financial sector, and this editor likes to do a lot of financial edits. Perhaps I can reach out to them. You're chancing it, and so the answer is yes, but do it with someone who knows what they're doing.
Okay. And we've got another question in here, which I think speaks very much to the do it with someone who knows what we're doing. And then we're going to move on to the question that's getting a lot of thumbs up, because I think everyone gets the same question from their CEO. So I realize, Stephen, that you do run a company that manages online reputation. So you might be slightly biased in this answer. But we got a question. I was approached by an agency who claimed that they can edit or create a page for your company. How legitimate is that? How do you vet companies like that, or agencies that are saying, if your PR agency says they can do that, how do you vet that claim?
It's very hard to vet that claim. I'll be honest with you. It's very easy to say that you do it. And by the way, you can even be, speak to someone who actually can do it. The real question is, what will happen after they do the edit? What will happen? Will it stick for a week and then get shot down? Will it get shot down right away? What will happen in 6 months to that edit? What will happen? And so that's the real, and that's very difficult to know at face value. It's very hard to have that conversation in the beginning and understand who they really are, unless they come with a reference, or unless they're someone that that another friend or another acquaintance that has worked with, who can just refer them over to you and say, I've worked with them, I know that they're good, or at least I trust them. They're trustworthy people. I've done business with them in other areas, so at least in character, I know that this person is trustworthy. And at the very least, you know that this is someone who's going to care about you and care about your page and do it the right way. Because that's really what's important, is that even if it's someone who hasn't done it a tremendous amount and they can't, or they can't prove that they've done it a tremendous amount, that at the very least, you know that they care about you and they care about your page. You know that they're going to make sure to get it done right.
Okay. So some of these agencies are legitimate. I will highlight yours as one of them. We've been working together for about a year now, so I'll say not on our online reputation, but I'll say I put some
No
faith
need.
in here. But so some of them are, some of them aren't, but you do need to kind of try to vet as carefully as possible when considering working with someone, because they too could approach a Wikipedia editor and anger them or get you flagged, right? Like they can screw that up too. So
Yeah.
Important to keep in mind as you embark on this. So let's ask the burning question.
You gotta go long. You really have to go long here. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, let's ask the burning question that everyone wants to know. How do I get my CEO a Wikipedia page?
Very good. So the answer is, you don't do it yourself. That's first of all.
Okay.
The answer, the real answer is your CEO worthy of getting a page, right? Because you can have a company. We dealt with, I believe we spoke about this actually. I think I may have sent you the video as well. Is that we did deal with a Fortune 100 company where someone did there was a new CEO who took position. Okay, he was the COO of the company. He had been there for 25 years, right? He wasn't that prominent, right? But the company is quite prominent, right? A Fortune 100 firm company. The previous CEO wasn't that prominent either, but he had his own Wikipedia page. And so what I think is important to know and understand is, what type of coverage does the CEO have, right? Is there real third-party coverage speaking about the CEO, spotlighting the CEO? And I think that's quite important. It's something that we love to discuss with our partners, specifically with our PR partners, because it also gives them the opportunity to then go out and get some of that third-party media for their clients, because then it will then make the CEO more wiki worthy, so to speak, and prominent enough to get a page. So it's kind of like a catch-22, right? Is that in order for the CEO to get a page, they need to get the right coverage, but in order to get them that coverage, the reporters need to think that the CEO is prominent enough. And so what you need to do is you need to position your CEO in a way where they look important and the company's doing important things, right? To the point where, okay, look, this is an important company, or this is an important person, right? There are cases even when a CEO may not even be known necessarily for his work so much with a company. It could be that he or she is quite active in the community at some level, or they're doing something else. They've gotten involved in politics, they've gotten involved in whatever it may be, and that also may make them worthy of a Wikipedia page, and then you can kind of put the company information in there as well. So there are a number of angles to work with, rather, to get them that page. But what's important is to understand that they need coverage. They need to have that coverage online, because it's all about the resources on Wikipedia, and they need to be trusted resources. They can't be any PR newswire or like any sort of PR coverage. They need to be real third-party coverage that's showing who this person is and why they're worthy of a page.
Okay, so when your CEO asks, why can't I get a Wikipedia page, or can I get a Wikipedia page? Or for you, when one of the clients asks, why can't my CEO get a Wikipedia page? What are the criteria that make that CEO wiki worthy, if you will?
Sure. The company, again, this is a specific case of a CEO. So we want to know, what's the company up to? Is the company noteworthy? Do they get coverage? We want to know if the CEO themselves gets the coverage. Are they active? Are they doing anything important in their industry, or specifically at the spearheading their company, or are they doing anything important there? if they're just a name sitting at the top of the company and there's not much coverage there, so it's going to be hard. And that's really the most important, I would say, of just to understand that the company and the individual should be lined up the right way. And if they are worthy, we'll then reach out to editors. We'll start working with them to get things moving, as we did in that case that I mentioned before. There was enough coverage out there to make it make sense. And then it was like, we were at a position in a point where we could just get it done. We did get it done. And then it's kind of funny because once the CEO got that page, he ended up getting a lot more coverage afterwards. So it's kind of like one brings the next, and it works out quite well. But again, it's really just about the coverage and then going through the process of getting that page up there and building it out as much as you can.
Okay. That makes sense. So really, I mean, it's third-party coverage that legitimizes enough to get us on Wikipedia, which means that our comms teams or our agencies have to do a good job getting those profiles, and not just anywhere, right? Like it can't, I mean, not to disparage any websites, but it can't just be, whoismyceo.com. Like it needs to be something, a major acknowledged publication in most cases.
Yeah, that's great. And it can't be a one-liner either. It can't just be like and Larry Fink, who's CEO, that's not enough, right? It's got to be something more like, let's talk about Larry Fink, right? And let's sit down with Larry Fink and at least have a 2 or 3 paragraph, something, some sort of real coverage of who he is, some of his background, right? Don't just tell me from LinkedIn what his story is. I want to know, that you've done that the publication has done a little bit of research to understand who they are, and they're giving the acknowledgement that this is someone worth looking into more and understanding who they are a little bit more, and digging in with, sitting down and talking to. And like I said, it's more of a spotlight than it is just a 1 or 2 sentence.
Okay. And we have a question in the chat that I think is a good one. So continuing on the CEO question, because I think a lot of the answers are similar for company and CEO, right? Like these are incredibly similar processes. But she's asking, if a CEO experiences a career change that requires their wiki to be updated, how do you get it updated? Like, let's say they're no longer the CEO here or there, or there's a CEO and the chairman of the board now, something like that.
Right. So again, it's about having a network of editors to work with, reaching out to the right ones, and ensuring that those changes are made. Sometimes the example that you use for is a brief, quick fix of just, now she's left the position and she's now now she's just the chairman of the board or whatever it may be, and it's a little one-liner. Perhaps it also needs to be changed. If you look at the right side of a screen on a Wikipedia page, there's something called the info box, and the info box also has a key people section. And sometimes you just need to update that key people section, kind of move the name into just, chairman, and take the person out, or leave the person in key people and just change their title. There are a few changes that need to be made, but again, the importance here is, I cannot stress it enough, work with people who know what they're doing. Otherwise, you are asking for a train wreck, and it's just not worth it, especially if you have a page that's going to get a decent amount of traffic. You just want to make sure that you're doing it right.
Okay. Well, we talked about regulatory concerns of doing it yourself, because I know that some of our members have gone in especially for really minor edits, and gone in and done it themselves. And one of our members is mentioning that here. This is okay to try. You're going to get in lots of trouble. You're going to end up with flags, maybe all of the above. Like where do you fall on that when we're talking about kind of minor changes? I think when we're dealing with bigger changes, it's fairly obvious that you're getting into hot water fast by doing your own edits, or you may be. You probably need to work with the editors at least. What about those things that you can edit yourself and it seems like it works? Right.
Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. I think that sometimes you can get away with it. It's just a matter of risk. It's a matter of whether you're willing to risk. This isn't a, let's put it this way. This is not a Crunchbase page where you can just update it and move on, right? This is more about, it's a little bit more watched. And so sometimes you just need to be careful. Again, you can get away with it. I'm not saying, don't do it. I'm just saying it pays to do it in the way that it has to be done. Don't just update it from, like I said, your company IP address or whatever it's going to be. You can go off, you can go to some, cafe or whatever, sit down and log in rather through their, do it on your phone or go through their Wi-Fi or whatever it's going to be and get it done. That's also fine, right? Especially for smaller edits. These are things that can be done. You just need to know how to do them. You need to do them right, and you just don't want to botch it up, because if you mess it up, it's either going to get reverted, or worst cases, you'll get flagged. However, like I said, you can get away with some of the small ones. That's also fine.
Okay. Just make sure you don't do it from your company IP address, or maybe even from your home, just for the sake of traceability.
Yeah. Well, if you're Larry Fink, don't do it from your home, right? Because
Okay.
they'll trace it back to your home.
We will,
If you're someone who happens to be a marketing executive at a financial firm, so that's probably okay. It's not the biggest deal.
all right. Well, so let's talk about controversy. You mentioned controversy kind of early on. You said that if there had been controversies about the page we were looking at, there would be a section about that. Talk to us about when something happens and it's a big thing and it ends up on your Wikipedia page. How do you deal with those controversies?
Sure. So what we often our stance is add the controversy before someone else does, right? If it's well known. If it's something which is not so well known and it may or may not show up, then maybe you want to wait it out. But if it's not well known, but if it is well known, if it's something that happened, right, and it made the news and it's out there, then I'd rather put it up in our words than in someone else's words, right? I'd rather have our client, shape however they want it to look and use the language that they want to use and control the narrative. I mean, that's really what this is all about. In general, reputation management is not, it's not about, it's not about just throwing away crises. It's about taking control of the narrative through the crisis, because you can't stop that from coming, right? It's happening. And so what you need to do is you need to ride it, and at the very least take control of it and steer it in the direction that you'd like to steer it in and work with it. In the case of Wikipedia, we've had many instances where there were crises that came up and they were very well known for our clients. And as opposed to it being a controversy section, what we would do is perhaps just add it to the history section as a one sentence. So such and such happened in 2023, and this and whatever, and there was an SEC fine, or there was a this, there was a that, or whatever it was. And that was the end of it. It didn't require a controversy section, right? Whereas if some other editor came along, it's very possible that they would create a whole new section. It's a controversy section, and then they're going to say, oh, there's a controversy section. Let's go find the other controversies and put them in there as well, right? And let's build it out. It's its own section now, right? And you're just going to call more attention to it. So we like to catch it early and to add it, and to add it in the language that our client wants to. We don't choose the language, obviously. We'll discuss it with the client. And there are times where the client will suggest putting it, using the language that may not work as well. So we'll have a little bit of a correspondence there and understanding, and just to hash it out to make sure that it's going to make sense for other editors if they see it. But the point is that we will often add it first. Again, if it's well known. If it's not that well known, we'll wait it out. Let's see what happens. Perhaps we can fix it along the way and so on. But it really is. It depends on the case.
Okay. And if somebody else beats me to it and gets it added, should I work with someone, or should I try to respond or edit there? Like, how do I fix it in that case? If somebody else has added 15 controversies for my company overnight, which I think for most of us would be a bit of a nightmare. How do I respond to that? I mean, I should be able to defend myself, or at least put my point of view in, right?
Well, they don't really care about your point of view, unfortunately. They don't really want to hear. That's the thing, is they don't really want to hear especially what a company has to say about itself, for sure. This isn't Glassdoor or Indeed, right? You don't, or Google reviews. You don't get to really respond. What you have to do is then you have to work with what's already up there. And so I would suggest, first of all, not touching it for a little while, even though it might be painful. I would suggest waiting a little bit because that editor is likely going to be watching to see if something happens. Every time an edit is made, if it's made to the content that you've added as an editor, you will get notified. So if something changes to an edit that you've made, you may get notified, and then you'll see that perhaps the controversy that you added was changed, and then you may start a war, and that's something that you don't want to get into. So the last thing that you always want to avoid any attention. You don't want you don't want anyone to pay any attention to you on Wikipedia. You want that page to be there. You want it to be however good it can be, and that's it. You don't want to call any attention for other editors to that page. So you may want to wait it out, see how things go. Maybe over time, restructure it or change a couple of words here and there. Do it yourself. Definitely don't. I would say don't do it yourself in such a case, because again, that you really have to tread lightly, and you have to understand the right way to get this done, and the timing and the language, and just know who to work with in this type of case.
Okay. Well, and Dave just asked a really good question. I think makes sense here. So we're referring to Wikipedia as a they, and we talked about who some of these editors could be, but it's actually pretty loosely organized. So can you give detail on how they function? I mean, what if there's a crazy person who hates my company who's also a Wikipedia editor? Like, how do I deal with that?
Yeah, pray that doesn't happen, first of all, right? Because that could happen. And so I guess I'm sorry that I keep saying they. They're not a company, so I guess you have to just say they, the editors. And it's really it's a culture. It's a group of people driven by a culture of wanting to make some sort of impact. Because again, we're talking about 90 billion views a year, right, on Wikipedia. This is a lot of fun, right? It's great to be able to write something on the web that people look at, right? Why not? And so when people have that perspective, especially if they have more time on their hands, which a lot of editors do have they have a lot of time in their hands. They're often retired. They often just or they have jobs that are a little bit less exciting, and so that in their spare time they'll do this on the side or even at the office, right? And they're often people who just enjoy adding facts and statements to pages, right? And they like it when things are right, and they want to follow the rules. And the rules are the rules, right? The rules are literally they follow. They're quite rigid about the rules, these people, and it's the type of person. I guess you would say it's a profile. When we say they, it's a profile of a type of a person who enjoys following the rules and wants to add content and kind of likes the power of adding to these pages and has nothing else to do. So they're watching these pages all the time. So that's who the they is, right? They're people who are interested. They're generally, for one reason or another, interested in ensuring that these pages are correct and that they're following whatever the Wikipedia rules are, the rules and the standards. So it's quite important to them. And so that's why you need to be careful of them, because if there is someone who's a hater, that hater will take it to the end. I had a client once who was very well spoken, right? He was a political commentator, very, very well spoken, very well sourced. His page was really well sourced. I worked very closely with him, and we couldn't get anything done in his page, even though we were working with editors to get content added that was very well sourced also, and everything just worked very well. It all made a lot of sense what we wanted to do to that page, and everything got shot down because the other editors just didn't like him. They didn't like his page. They didn't like him for whatever reason. It wasn't every editor on Wikipedia, but because there are some editors who care enough, so those editors are the ones who are going to stop things from happening or make changes to the page. All you need is someone who's crazy about a specific page or a specific topic, and that person and that editor can really do a lot of damage, because they'll do it within the rules of Wikipedia. They'll say that you're not following the rules. They'll say that they'll come up with all different types of excuses to make changes to that page or to revert changes that you've made to that page. If they don't like you, then you're in big trouble. That's why I'd say you really don't want to grab any attention. You want to stay far away from calling in any attention to your page, and you want to just keep things nice and calm. If you need to make a change, you need to be smart about the way you do it, because people kind of they put their own personalities here into play, and it gets a little dangerous.
Okay,
Does that make
the big tips from this session that I'm coming out with are, first off, you need a Wikipedia page. Get one if you possibly can. But then once you have it, keep it on the download. Like don't mess with it too much, and don't try to sway it too much, because you could get in an awful lot of trouble, and it could actually backfire. You'd rather not have one in that case than have one. So let's talk about just protocol. There's inaccurate information on my page. What is my first step?
I'm sorry, what was that again? You broke up.
So in terms of protocols, there's inaccurate information on my page. What is my first step when there's inaccurate information?
Okay, so I know I'm a little bit repetitive, but find the right person to work with, or right people to work with. Show them the inaccuracies on the page, and then show them sources. Provide them with sources of the updated information. Those sources it would be better if those sources were not owned by the company or the individual. It would be better if those sources were third party. We're going to use BlackRock again as an example. It's better not to update earnings with the BlackRock site. You may want to do that perhaps with a third party site. It's probably okay. It's fine. It'll pass, but you want to just make sure that you cross all your T's and dot all your I's and make sure that it's really clean, and try and look for a third party source. Just to go back to one of the things that you said is about not editing. What I would say is you can definitely edit the pages. You just need to get it done the right way. You need to work with the right people and get it done, at the right pace, and they'll also advise you on that pace, because there's a lot that can be done on Wikipedia. You just need to be really careful. You need to tread lightly and just do it in a way. Just do it with a professional, someone who's going to know how to get it done, without all these dangers involved.
Okay. And when you say the right people, you're probably referring to, agencies or kind of go-betweens like yourself, not necessarily find an editor who's friendly, because in the process of trying to find an editor who's friendly, you might find some who are incredibly unfriendly. Is that kind of the takeaway there?
Yeah. I believe the risk outweighs the reward in that case. Yes.
Okay. All right. And we've only got a few minutes left, so I will. I'm going to ask kind of my final question, but I know we're open for questions in the chat, and we're getting more. So what questions should a financial marcoms professional be really asking themselves about their company and their leadership's Wikipedia page? Like, if you are starting tomorrow, Stephen, at a financial company, what are you looking at in terms of their online reputation that you're going to say, okay, this is good, or this is fine, or this is something that needs to be addressed. We do have some issues here that we need to address. So what should we be looking at?
What should you be looking at on the page itself, you're saying?
Or just in general. I mean, when I'm Googling or on the Wikipedia page, what should we be looking at? Yeah, I mean, I would start with on our Wikipedia pages. What are we concerned about or not concerned about?
I would, to be honest, I would audit the entire page as a company. Look at your page, go through everything, make sure everything makes sense. Anything that's negative, anything that's going to be controversial and negative, mark down to yourself. Think about how you can get it changed. Think about how it could be reworded. Consider working with someone to get that done. Look at just the general information. Does it all make sense? Your key people, like you said, your executives. Look at your executives in the key people section on the right side to ensure that makes sense. Update it. Like we said, if you want, you could try updating that, from somewhere else, or you can see the best way to get that done. But you really just want to make sure everything's updated. Just go through it and see what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what you don't like about that page. The first thing to do is really just to keep notes about it, and just to understand where you're holding. Does this page make sense? Does it not make sense? Look at your peers also, right? Look at some of your competitors, look at their Wikipedia pages, right? And note, is my page as robust as theirs? Perhaps it's a little sparse. Look at their pages, understand like how it's all relative, right? How are other companies covered? How are other CEOs covered? What do their pages look like? Does their CEO, does she just have two paragraphs, or does the other, or do other CEOs have an entire page? It also has to do with coverage, right? Do they have enough coverage that's going to provide them with a longer page? Perhaps they're more outspoken and they're more well known, so they have a longer page or a bigger page. Look at the pictures also. You may want to update pictures. That's also important. That's not so simple to do. Updating pictures, you have to have them uploaded to Wikimedia. It's another site, and then you have to tie it in, and it's also a process. And so you just look at the entire page and understand if everything makes sense. That's the point.
Okay, that sounds great. We are open for questions over in the chat. Carmen, I see your question there. I'm going to let Aaron respond to that in the chat because I don't know the answer as to how ClearMark works on their own services. But if anybody else has a question, I think we've got 1 or 2 minutes. If not, I have a couple of questions. I have a couple more. So while we wait and see if anybody else has questions, quickly, I'm curious. So Wikipedia, we've been talking about Wikipedia. There's obviously an interested group here who wants to know about Wikipedia. Are there other sites that have levels of influence like Wikipedia, or is it just because historically Wikipedia has always had this power, Wikipedia is the site with this power?
Wikipedia has really become the site with this power mostly. Other sites have tried, but they're not nearly as impactful. Like I had mentioned before, Crunchbase is also quite impactful, but not at the same level. Not at the same level. Crunchbase for executives is quite impactful. Companies as well. It depends, but it's nowhere near the same degree as Wikipedia.
Okay, great. Well, we are about 2 minutes to the hour, which means everyone is needing to hop to their next Zoom call. So we'll go ahead and cut it off here. If you have questions for Stephen that are more specific to your specific use case, happy to share his contact information. You all have my email address, ashley@financialnarrative.org. Just reach out to me and I'll be happy to introduce you to Stephen with to get some advice on your particular setup. Thank you so much, Stephen. This has been very informative. It seems like a little bit of a weird black hole, Wikipedia, but I appreciate you shining a little bit of light on it for us.
Sure. Always happy to answer any questions. Anyone can email me and be in touch or whatever it is, and it's back and forth, and we're here to help however we can. So thank you so much for having us, Ashley.
All right. Well, thank you to Stephen and thanks to ClearMark for bringing us this information. We really appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Take care. All the best.